Hey guys, Cody here with Ajax Motorsports. Today I just want to kind of show you a brief tour of my toolbox. Nothing special, just a regular old Craftsman box, but it gets the job done. Inside the top is the stuff that you get to most often. I'm going to have a fork pump for WP. This guy right here, it's just a snap-on, basically driver, but it's got a little clutch on it. It's my favorite tool in here, and you can use a 3/8 or 1/4 inch little adapter in there, but this thing gets the job done. I use this so much. I think everybody should have one of these. I know it's way expensive, but this thing will pay for itself. Next up, so I just kind of keep my wrenches in a little sleeve here. So I don't use them that often, but I do need them. So just my, what you would expect in here, just all your metric wrenches, and I have a lot of them are duplicates with a ratcheting wrench instead, because I like to have both there. Sometimes there's a hard to reach area that you need a little ratcheting wrench, but just a metric set of wrenches there. Have a tape measure, you never know what you're going to need it for. Tire pressure, so of course you need to check your tire pressure with the tire gauge. I like this one from KTM because it goes pretty low pressure on that. In here I'll have a laminated torque specs for my bike. This goes for most of KTM, Husky, Gas's torque specs. So across the board, they're pretty much the same, but I like to have that because you should be torquing your stuff down. Just if you don't torque it down, it's not gonna work properly. So that just kind of coincidentally fits nicely up inside my top of the box and stays there. I prefer to work with sockets and ratchets than T-handles like most of your motorcycle folk do, but so here's kind of what I've got going on. I've got 1/4 inch drive, I've got shallow, and I've got a deep length socket on those. So 1/4 inch drive, and then I've got my mid-length 3/8 drive. We'll have torques. I'll have a few adapters over here so I can kind of make do. If I'm using my torque wrench, I can kind of make some adaptations there. I'll have several different ratchets, 3/8. I've got a couple different 1/4 inch drives, and then I've got this 1/4 inch drive that has a 3/8 head, or 3/8, I don't know what you would call that, but it's basically 3/8 but in a little 1/4 inch drive body, which is pretty cool. I actually use that quite a bit. Little thumb ratchet there, so I can put that on there and turn it easier. A bunch of different extensions, so I can kind of get into anywhere I need to or use those accordingly. But that's kind of what I've got going in the top. Pretty simple, but that gets me in and out of that pretty quickly without having to go through drawers to get to the majority of what I'm going to be working with. Shout out to my grandma, she made this. All right, going into our drawers. Top drawer is probably my next most used drawer. It's gonna be my pliers and my screwdrivers and things like that. So just a knife. You never know when you're gonna need to cut something or someone. You never know if they come messing around my box. Pick, so most used for stabbing yourself in the finger. Little flathead screwdriver with a little magnet on the end. Dual purpose, because you're probably gonna drop something, you'll need to pick it up, but great for adjusting your clickers or little miniature pry bar if you need it. This is a JIS cross point screwdriver, not a Phillips. It's actually a different setup. It looks pretty much the same, but it actually fits into let's say the Phillips shaped heads that you're gonna see on motorcycles most commonly. So this does a great job of not rounding those out and stripping those out. We'll have a couple different flashlights in here just to help me see in the dark, obviously. I don't know what you would call this plier, but it's for getting those little black plastic rivets out of like side-by-sides you see more often. So for motorcycle, you probably don't need that very often, but you do need it quite often if you're ever working on a side-by-side. Got some flush cuts right here. These I think I got on Amazon for like $8. Instead of going Snap-on, they didn't have them at the time, but they've worked great. I probably would buy those again. These guys right here are snap ring pliers. I use these for getting the oil filter out of bikes most often, so it's not what they were intended for, but that works great for getting the oil filter out of your KTM. And then I'll have a standard set of side cutters, needle nose, and then I like these a lot. These are slip joint, just regular slip joint pliers, so I can get out there, get a wide bite, or I can get in there and get a narrow bite. So I like that slip joint on that. And another flashlight, that kind of rounds out that second drawer for my grabby and pokey things. Down here in my third drawer, a couple things in here. I'm gonna have a torque wrench. This is a Harbor Freight digital torque wrench. I like that one a lot because I go in there and do newton meters or foot pounds if I need to. So Pretty versatile. This is 3/8 drive, so if I need to get there and do an axle or something like that, I've got some adapters in my top drawer that I can go in there and do adapters to get up to a 1/2-inch drive. Ball peen hammer. Gotta have a ball peen hammer. And then I've got a dead blow with a brass end on the other end, so that's pretty handy. Try not to beat on your bike too much, but sometimes you need to get the big hammer out, and that one's not gonna tear stuff up. 32 socket for my rear axle on my bike. Got a couple punches in here, so we've got a flat. This is more like a chisel, and then this is a little pinhead. This is something I think most people should have in their box. Mine doesn't even have battery in it, but I use it all the time, more than you would think you would use it, but it's just a little caliper. It's super handy to just be able to check the inside and outside diameter and make sure you're using the right stuff at the right times. I use this thing so often, especially if I'm trying to find, like particularly if I'm looking through a parts fish or something like that, and I need to make sure I've got the right bolt, a 35 mil bolt or whatever. Having a caliper solves a lot of those problems without making more headaches later on. So I think everybody needs to have a caliper. Another thing that you really use a caliper on a lot, especially on a dirt bike, I like using it to adjust my chain tension, so I can just check if both my axle blocks are in the same position by just checking one, locking it, and then go to the other side and checking that one too. So I highly recommend everyone get one of these. You can get them off of Amazon for cheap. So probably need to get one of those if you don't have one. It lives in the box. Handy case. All right, into my junk drawer. Everybody has a junk drawer. Mine's doesn't have a whole lot of method to madness, but I'll dig it out here. A little piece of Scotch-Brite pad, not even a full piece, but a little piece of that. You never know when you need to clean something. Also works great when you're washing your bike to clean your aluminum parts or your headers, things like that, to get some of that mud off that's baked onto there. I've got a full set of T-handle Allens, or hex heads, I guess. I don't use those super often since I have that in a 3/8 drive, but these come in handy every once in a while. We'll have a chain breaker in here, so this just kind of lives in here. I don't use it that often, but you probably ought to have one of these in here so you don't have to go asking your buddies to borrow one. This probably doesn't get used on my bikes very often, but it lives in the toolbox. These are just a bunch of assorted fuses. So, I mean, the bikes have some fuses usually, but these are usually for my vehicles. So since this lives in the vehicle, that's kind of the catch-all where my fuses live. We'll have some Gojo little hand cleaners. So if you don't have a chance to put gloves on or something like that, or you can clean your hands if you don't have water. So that's pretty nice. A little bag of rubber gloves. I'll have some tire tools in there. Luckily I don't have to use those very often. I've got a couple of standard length ones and then one Mac Daddy in there. So hopefully I don't have to change tires at the track, but if I do, it's in there. I have a little spoke wrench in there as well. A couple extra parts for my bike, extra shift lever. This one kind of got a little bit wore out, so made a good spare, so I just put that in my backup. Kind of sucks if you've been to shift lever or something like that and then you're trying to ride with that. Got extra set of rear brake pads. Those are in good condition. Don't really know why I changed them, but they're like pretty much brand new, but they live in there. This is something that I think everybody should have in their track box, is just an assorted mess of bolts that fit your bike or your buddy's bikes, preferably yours. And then you can be the king that has them all, and then you can help your buddies out. Bolt sells these little track packs. You can get these at Ajax. They sell these small ones like this that you can throw it in your toolbox or in your gear bag or whatever. You will need it at some point. And there's a few things that I've put in here that don't normally belong with these. So if you buy new levers, they'll come with new springs and little other pieces of hardware. So these things always get lost. So if you think about it, throw that in your hardware kit. You'll probably need it at some point. But yeah, you've got to have a little bit extra hardware because you never know when one's going to rattle out. Teflon tape, you're probably not going to use this on your motorcycle, but I've been surprised how often I do need Teflon tape when I'm just out and about and it's in the van and I know I have it. So Teflon tape, I don't really know why it's in there, but it's in there and it gets used. You got this little spring puller. This probably came with an exhaust because it's not like one you can buy, but I don't use them very often, but I've got one if I need it. I'll have a few zip ties in here. Self-explanatory, you're going to need zip ties at some point. You might as well have some on hand so you don't have to go hunting for them. Got an extra spark plug for my Trials bike. My 4-stroke didn't really go through them, but Trials bike occasionally you need to change that out. I'll have a crescent wrench in there. I try not to use this on my my normal day-to-day tasks, so it lives in a drawer deep down inside, so there's a little bit of a walk of shame when I do need to use it. That one's a shout out to my dad, who would always get on to me for using a crescent wrench when I could use a regular wrench. So that one lives in the bottom drawer where it's shameful, right? Got a couple of, what would you call these? Just taper bits or whatever? Countersinks, yeah. I like to make things look a little bit cleaner than just boring a hole in there and leaving the extra stuff straggling on there. So I've got a couple of different countersinks in there. This is probably not something you're going to need for your track box unless you're a road bike guy, but even then they probably live on your bike. But here at the shop occasionally I work on some street bikes, so for like 10 or 12 bucks on Amazon I bought a whole kit of swing arm spools, so that way you can lift the bike up with one of those swing arm jacks, I guess you would call it, but or track stands. But don't use those a whole lot, but you do need them occasionally, especially if we're at a bike shop. But that's kind of the goodies inside of my box. As far as stickers goes, I haven't really taken a lot of liberties on mine. I've got a couple of little comical ones that I stole off of a used bike once, and one for our buddy Randy Thomas, who was a tech here for years and passed away a while back. But yeah, that's my box. I don't have everything I need in there for getting into the engine, but how often do you have to do that at the track? But this will get me out of a pinch in just about anything. And all this being said, don't come ask for tools. This is showing you what you need to have in your box, or giving you some ideas of things that you should have. So if you see me, come say hi. Don't ask for anything.